The story begins in a world called LATNA. We see a boy struggling to fight off a wolf. This is because he has been chosen to survive in this world and become strong. Chosen by whom? We don't know yet. The boy is also very shocked, and understandably so, because even he has no idea what's going on, and on top of that, he is getting bullied by a wolf. The wolf charges at him, but the boy is able to strike it down with a rock. The only thing he is sure about is that he needs to kill this creature if he wants to survive. Pushed to the edge of a cliff, the boy shouts at the wolf as he doesn't understand why he is being attacked. Instead of a reply from the wolf, a screen pops up with information on the wolf, which turns out to be a level 1 hell dog and is the lowest level monster in this world. Moreover, it tells the boy he possesses strength equal to that of an adult male and can level up by defeating powerful monsters. Like any typical manhwa reader, the boy is able to come to the conclusion that he is in some fantasy game world. As the wolf is at his throat, we get the perfect opportunity for a flashback. We see the boy spending his day lazing around as he had recently gotten discharged from his mandatory military service. We see on his uniform that his name is Ryu Han-bin, and the habit he adopted after being discharged became more deep-rooted. Ryu started spending his days on his PC lazing around. One day, as he was eating chips, out of nowhere smoke started surrounding him, and in a blink of an eye, he disappeared. When Ryu opens his eyes, he hears voices talking about there being 7 billion candidates for the chosen one. Ryu is confused as to what is going on. The voices continue as they talk about transmitting the guidelines. As the transmission commences, one of the voices says that he made a mistake with the guidelines, but the other one tells him that it's only for one person, so who cares? And just like this, chosen one number 398 gets transported to this dimension of LATNA. As Ryu ends the Hell Dog's life, he gains 13 XP. He frustratingly wonders why he is in this place, especially when he only got discharged 3 months ago and hasn't even had a girlfriend yet. The Heartless system kicks him when he is down with another pop-up which tells him he has only a 5% chance of survival, as it asks him if he would like to end his own life. This is enough for Ryu to get up and solidify his determination to survive and find a way out of this place. The system boosts his skills as Ryu was able to discover his will and fighting spirit. On top of this, he is given the option to select a class. Delighted by this, Ryu browses through the classes. He is least interested in the warrior class, as that is only fun in games. After some thought, he chooses the magician class because of the range, but the system rejects his selection due to his lack of capability. So he chooses the magic swordsman class only to get rejected once more. He is given the warrior class after he gets rejected from the healer class as well. Now it's time to choose a weapon. Once again, going for range, he chooses the long spear, but due to some error, ends up getting a long sword. The error reminds him of the mistake with the guidelines that the voice was talking about. He is once again stressed as the guidelines are the only useful thing, and even that is bugged. Setting aside all these setbacks, he picks up the sword as he still does not want to die. We see him swing the sword a bit, and that 5% starts making a lot of sense. 7 days have passed since Ryu came to LATNA. He tried asking the guidelines several times for info on how he can get back, but there was nothing but silence. He wonders if it's because of the bug as he fights a hell dog. After a week in this world, Ryu has figured out that hell dogs can also level up, as they are the only monsters he has fought. Moreover, he observes that the dog tries to attack him between swings, which makes him wonder if they are getting used to him like he is to them. So, changing his strategy a bit, Ryu tries to attack it from above, which could work if he had any talent for the sword. Despite that, he is able to defeat the dog and reach level 2. Upon reaching a new level, he gets the stab skill, which he can easily execute, although he isn't very good with the sword. This is also thanks to the guideline system, which can do many other things like telling him the content of the food he is consuming. Although the hell dog meat is useful, their teeth and claws are not, as they go dull very quickly. While he eats, Ryu wonders why he was brought to this place and where they sent the other 7 billion candidates he heard about. This thought activates the guideline system, and a screen pops up telling him that he can leave the current area, Rock Mountain, at level 5 and meet with the other chosen ones. As he tries to understand this, more information pops up. From this, he learns that this is just a newbie area and monsters are adjusted to the player's level. While the main area is filled with other chosen ones, there he will be able to level up to 20 and be transported to LATNA continent where the real fight will begin. As he tries to inquire more, the system once again gives an error. Still, he feels he learned some important information. Now he just needs to reach level 5 and meet with other chosen ones to learn more. So starting that day, Ryu started hunting hell dogs to level up, but the fights didn't get easier as they leveled up with him. He gained skills along with leveling up. Ryu's days were a cycle of hunting, eating, getting injured, and sleeping. After repeating this cycle for weeks, he had his final battle with a level 4 hell dog. Using his wits and skill, Ryu was victorious. With that final bit of experience and 27 days of struggle, he was finally able to reach level 5. The result of all his hard work was 3 skills and raised stats, which started to show in his physique. Ryu's happiness was short-lived as an error in the system caused his level to drop back to 4. He tries to remain calm as he believes it's just a small bug. So once again, looking very carefully, he screams as his level truly has dropped to 1. But there is a silver lining. His stats and skills are still there. So he just needs to hunt the level 1 hell dogs. Well, that is easier said than done as the dogs keep getting stronger regardless of their levels. With every passing day, Ryu continued to risk his life in order to level up. But no matter how many hell dogs he killed, he kept getting thrown back to level 1. Although he was also getting stronger, what was the point? 7 years had passed for him, repeating this same cycle. As the chosen one, he couldn't age and most injuries got healed within a day, but due to not leveling up past 4, he was stuck with the same 3 skills he had at the start. We see how strong the hell dogs have become. They don't even look like dogs now. They are more like undead, similar to Ryu in a sense. We see that the 5th operation Generathna is about to commence. A white figure talks about how he is used to it now because it's already the 5th time. We learn most players clear the world within a year. As the white figure looks through the players, he stumbles upon Ryu's card, who is still logged into LATNA. We see Ryu is somehow back in his room. Suddenly, the guideline screen pops up once again asking him if he would like to take his own life. Seeing it, he is shaken up and is able to snap back from being unconscious in LATNA. It has been 10 years and Ryu has survived another day. Now it seems like even a fall from a cliff isn't enough to kill him. But that is not the issue as he is at level 1 again. He wonders if he can even call this living and thinks about quitting. This thought is short-lived because if he is to die, he would like to make it a worthy death. So he picks up his sword to start hunting again. Having spent more than 10 years in this place, Ryu has lost track of time. He has adopted a few hobbies which are quite useful for his survival. Even in this harsh environment, he has learned to live with a positive attitude and has even built a home for himself. Although Ryu claims he lives without anger now, we quickly see there are some things that still make him angry, like the house he built over 3 years getting destroyed due to a hell dog. Still, he remains as calm as possible as he thinks about building a new home with this hell dog's bones. The hell dog, sensing the bloodlust, quickly flies away and uses his dragon breath, which might make some people question if it's even a dog at this point. Regardless, Ryu knows their patterns very well and is aware this attack is undodgeable, so he braces himself as he blocks the attack with his body. He is unscathed, although his hair get burned from the edges, leaving him annoyed once again. But it's not the time to worry about hair. Seeing Ryu unharmed, the hell dog starts casting multiple spells. Ryu blocks them by carving up a block from the surface, followed up with the final strike. Surprisingly, he misses as he is still not good with swords due to not leveling up. However, he still got his secret move, which he has used to beat tens of thousand hell dogs, the cross-impact triple cross attack, which combines all 3 of his skills. Ryu smiles upon surviving another day. We see the white figure who finally realizes that the kid who got bugged that one time is still in LATNA. This was 4 generations ago, which means 22 years have passed since then. He panics as he got no excuse. As he looks at Ryu's stats, he wonders how he was even able to survive. Just then he gets an idea as he grins with all 32 of his teeth. Meanwhile, Ryu is eating as he looks at his extra stats and wonders how strong he is. He thinks about how long he will have to live like this, but tries to stay positive as he believes a day will come when he can finally meet other people. Suddenly he sees a bright light in the sky, which we see is the doing of the white figure. After such a long time, something is happening and Ryu doesn't even know what. On the other hand, the white figure tries to get rid of him by erasing his records and sending him to a certain place. Lightning strikes and we see a dragon annoyed on the arrival of what she describes as otherworldly demons. Ryu is filled with all kinds of emotions as finally the day has come when the sky isn't red. He jumps up as he can't believe his eyes that are witnessing a beautiful blue sky. Soon gravity kicks in and he falls to the ground, although his happiness is still on cloud 9. He isn't sure what's going on as he is suddenly level 5, has gained a communication skill, and is suddenly in LATNA continent. So once again, he tries to ask the guideline system, but it's still bugged. I mean, it hasn't helped him in 22 years, so what was he expecting? He spots a screen he hasn't seen before. It reads that his final mission is to slay one of the 6 goddesses of LATNA. The rewards for this will be returning back to Earth in an eternal body and 3 wishes. In addition, the screen also tells him to keep his identity secret and to go register at a hunter's guild. As he is busy reading all this, a monster suddenly appears, and it's a dragon. Considering Ryu's luck, he should be happy it isn't the goddess already. Well, the dragon doesn't seem pleased, so Ryu goes for his sword to fix her mood, but his sword is not with him as he dropped it near the water. The dragon isn't willing to wait for him, so he has no other option but to use his fists. The dragon laughs at his strategy only until she gets punched, which sends her flying without consent. Even Ryu is shocked to see how easily he defeated her. After this, we hear the really sad story about how the dragon was bullied by otherworldly people. The story is so sad I don't even want to talk about it, so moving on, we learn that she is actually a wyvern, as dragons have 4 legs. Ryu isn't interested in this. What he wants to know is how she knew he was from another world. She tells him she can't tell by just looking. She only knows when they die and their bodies disappear. In conclusion, no one will be able to tell Ryu's identity, and the dragon was just assuming he is from another world. He further inquires if this is the Gratitude Kingdom as the guideline says, but the wyvern responds that it's now called the Extrad Kingdom as the previous one was destroyed. Ryu is a bit annoyed with this new info and asks her why she attacked him. She tells him because he is an otherworldly demon, which isn't the appropriate word to use in her situation. Scared, she mentions the goddess, which piques Ryu's interest. Before she tells him any further, she asks Ryu if she can go home and rub some medicine as she is in pain. He isn't very understanding at first, but decides to go with her so she can't run away. The wyvern tells him that at first the otherworldly humans and Rathians got along, but soon they started killing the Rathians in order to level up. The more powerful among them banded together and made a group called Great Earth in order to kill the goddess. There was no way to fight against them when they were being led by a level 100 leader, so before they came, the continent's 4 heroes, Berolt, Zenovia, Garhan, and Halion, massacred them. In conclusion, the otherworldly have made a contract with the wicked demon god, so they are quickly executed when their identity is found out. Hearing all this isn't very pleasant for Ryu as he finally escaped that rocky hell after dozens of years, and now he has to suffer for something that happened before he even came here. Not like our man will give up, so he determines himself to kill the demon god and get back home. But before that, he needs to take care of someone who knows his identity. The wyvern promises to not tell anyone, but all we hear is a scream. Who knows what happened to that poor thing? 5 days pass by and Ryu finally reaches Onpras City. The city is located near Safe Forest and a dungeon in Ithan Plains, so most people who come to this city are hunters, wannabe hunters, or otherworldly beings. As Ryu enters the guild, everyone assumes he is already a hunter from his physique. As soon as he states that he wants to register, everyone suddenly goes for their weapons. Some time ago, back at the cave, we see the wyvern is safe. Ryu asks for her help in getting equipment and clothes so he can blend in. She is a bit hesitant as she assumes Ryu would kill her afterward anyway. But Ryu tells her that she can't really go and tell other people about him as she is also wanted for killing. As she gives it a thought, Ryu adds that he feels nice having a conversation with someone after so long. This touches the wyvern's heart as she remembers her old friends. She agrees to help and throws in some clothes. He starts stripping in front of her, which flusters her a bit. He argues that she is also naked, to which the wyvern has no response. He somehow gets into his new clothes and the wyvern teaches our country boy some common sense, but he is more interested in how he can meet the goddess. For that, she tells him he needs to become one of the 4 heroes or perform a great service to receive their blessing, which is not easy. So the best course of action is to become a hunter and hunt monsters in dungeons which were made by the demon god Ormflaus. Ryu mentions that the guideline system also mentioned this, but he seems to be the only one who can see it. He further tells the wyvern that it's broken, so he doesn't have much to go on, yet she seems interested in what it says. Entering the guild, Ryu tries to be natural, especially after the wyvern puts so much time into him. But he is barely holding himself together as he registers himself with the name Eric Garun. As the receptionist welcomes him, he feels relieved and thankful for the wyvern's help. However, as he mentions that he wants to become a hunter, Everyone gets very suspicious about his identity, as he isn't already a hunter despite his physique. Ryu immediately notices the change in atmosphere but remains calm as he is told to place his hand on the measuring stone. Everyone is closely observing to see his abilities. He slowly moves his hand towards the stone as he can't back down now. Meanwhile, everyone else readies their weapons. Before we move on, we and the Wyvern are shown the beautiful dreams of Ryu, which I can say with confidence she didn't want to see. Back at the guild, everyone laughs in relief as he is just a level 5 swordsman. Ryu is confused about what is going on. The receptionist apologizes for mistaking him as an otherworldly human. He learns that most of them are level 20, and they still come to register as hunters despite their high level, which is an obvious giveaway. The registration fee is 300x. Hearing this, our boy almost loses his soul as he had hoped to spend 6 months with the 400x he took from the Wyvern. As he leaves with the badge, his hands tremble, having spent most of his money. Ryu is determined to make a name for himself, so he requests a dungeon exploration quest. Hearing this, a typical cocky-looking guy shows up, telling Ryu to know his place being only level 5. The receptionist asks him if he is planning to go to Saith Forest as the monsters in the dungeons are increasing in number and causing trouble. He responds that he has to as he is the only high level here. This helps us understand how talented he is in being annoying. Ryu doesn't understand what's the big deal as he is the same level as Ethier, the Wyvern. Although he is still a bit higher level than people at the guild, Ryu still doesn't want to get involved with him, which in my opinion is a very good decision. But fate has different plans for unlucky Ryu, as the receptionist mentions Mr. Annoying still has room in his party. She tells Ryu to join it as he won't be able to do missions alone and can also learn more about the job. However, there is still hope as Laud already has a newbie, so there is no room. The newbie introduces herself as Etis, as she lies about being a level 25 mage, hiding her true level. Ryu instantly looks away from her in order to be less suspicious. As we all thought he was safe, Laud decides to take Ryu, the insect, into his party due to his love for Miss Seguire, the receptionist. Ryu tries to ignore the disrespect, but Laud keeps intruding into his space as he unsuccessfully tries to lift his sword. Annoyed by this, Ryu draws his sword, picking out Laud with it. As everyone cheers for them to fight, a man looks at Ryu as he expresses having found who he was looking for. Everyone is shocked to see Ryu's strength, which I don't understand why. Can't they see his physique? Well, there is at least one person who notices the premium meat in front of his eyes. That person is Berkman. He praises Ryu's body while also telling him he should be careful not to destroy the guild if he doesn't want to fight everyone here. Taking his advice, Ryu quickly puts his sword back as he doesn't want to fight anyone. We see Laud is on the ground and feels disrespected, so he tells Ryu that no one will take a weak level 5 like him in their party but him. Ryu feels a bit worried as he needs to earn money and level up somehow. Seeing this, Berkman intervenes, telling Ryu he doesn't need to worry as leveling up will be easy for him with his physique. He mentions he was looking for someone like him and offers him to join his party. The old man knows the worth of Ryu's muscles and keenly waits for his response. Although Ryu knows he won't be able to stay in the party for long due to his high growth rate, he gladly accepts the offer. Onpras is a city run on the shoulders of hunters as they bring monster materials which are used to create products that are traded in the market. We finally see the Berkman party in action. The old man tanks the attacks from monsters while their spearman, Amber, is the damage dealer of the party. Dealing with the monster, Berkman gets injured. Amber shows her concern, and we see a bit of romance brewing between them. They are interrupted by Erwin, the old man's sister and the party healer, as she instantly heals his wounds. While her attention is diverted, a monster is about to bite her but is taken out by their magician Hubert, who plays the role of supporter in the party. With these four, their party is number 1 in the city when it comes to reliability and teamwork. Thus, it's the perfect party for Ryu to be in. However, the only issue is that the only job available for him is the bag boy. Despite that, the party shares the profits equally, and they even leave the weak monsters for Ryu. Sensing something from Ryu, the monsters send their boss to fight him. However, he is taken out in the blink of an eye with a stone bullet. It is not an actual skill, just Ryu throwing stones, but he doesn't get any experience because the monster was low level according to the system. Erwin comes to take him as they are done with hunting. Back at the camp, Erwin butchers the monsters for materials. They all smile and laugh, truly a wonderful evening to spend with everyone. Ryu fits right in as he has spent 20 years carving hell dogs. Hearing this, Erwin asks how old he is. Ryu replies that he is 24 as he never aged after that. This makes everyone curious and they inquire about his parents. Ryu tells them he was kidnapped when he was 4 and doesn't remember how they look like. This makes everyone tear up and they accept him as part of their family. As Ryu thanks them for accepting him in their party despite his levels, Berkman tells him levels aren't important as he was level 25 for 5 years. Ryu finds it a bit confusing as he is still level 25, but he finally understands as he learns there are no high-level monsters outside the dungeon. The highest one being Lord Devolk, which he already slayed. The real hit comes when he finds the party doesn't plan on going to the dungeons. Hearing this, he gets up telling everyone he will go practice with his sword. Worried about him, Hubert goes after him, but he is unable to find him. Meanwhile, Ryu is running through the forest in disbelief as there truly are no monsters that can give him experience. He remembers even monsters of Fire's level didn't give him any experience, making him wonder what his actual level is. As he decides to head back, he senses a monster similar to the Hell Dog, though not as big. Regardless, he rushes towards it in hopes of leveling up. Finally reaching the destination, Ryu goes for his sword, but is surprised instead, as the monster turns out to be a half-naked girl from Loud's party. But instead of a girl, it turns out to be a guy, or to define it more appropriately, he is what the weebs would call a trap. Regardless, Ryu quickly tries to leave as he still needs to find that monster, but he is stopped by Atis, who finds him suspicious for trying to look for strong monsters despite being a level 5. Ryu tells him he only came here because of the sound, and once again tries to leave, saying his party is waiting for him. Not satisfied, Atis stops Ryu using his fire magic and demands him to answer truthfully if he saw the monster. Annoyed, Ryu grabs the burning wand and extinguishes the flame. He tells Atis he is sick of him and Laud for mistreating him just because his level is lower. As that wasn't his intention, Atis admits his mistake. However, Ryu has a bigger annoyance to deal with as Laud shows up. He seems furious as he misunderstood the situation. Being a magic swordsman, he poses like an idiot and readies his attack. Meanwhile, Ryu tells Atis to put on some clothes, ignoring the fool. Finally, after wasting several panels on Laud, he charges towards Ryu with his attack. Although Ryu was a bit hesitant to do this, setting aside his pride, he bows and apologizes to Laud. Still in the middle of his attack, Laud is unable to stop and gets hit in the balls by the sword's handle. As Ryu sits in remorse, he feels horrible and tells Berkman he won't be able to forgive himself for causing a man such horrible pain. Erwin steps out and tells everyone the horrible news. Though Laud's life wasn't in any danger, he lost something way more precious. Every man in the room understood his pain but was powerless to help him. The next morning, Atis took him back to Onprust after telling him the truth, which devastated the poor ball-less man. We learned that Laud went to the dungeon alone. Ryu doesn't understand why Amber thinks that's a suicide mission, as he thought Laud was a fairly high-level player. She explains this is because the monsters she'd hunted to level up were not high level. Moreover, she explains that dungeon monsters are different as they are not originally from this world. This is because they are created by the dungeons set up by the evil god Ormflas. Amber also mentions that these monsters are usually level 30 or even higher, which makes Ryu wonder if he can level up there in secret. His plans face several bumps upon learning that screening for dungeon entry is not easy as otherworlders go there in secret to level up. Putting aside his schemes, he asks why Laud wanted to go there so badly. Berkman answers that he was probably looking for an artifact which comes with different abilities and shapes, and Laud probably wanted one which is rumored to heal all wounds. That night, when everyone goes to sleep, Ryu sneaks out. As he walks around in the dark, creepy forest, he has no clue where to find the monster, so he decides to ask Ethyr as she lives nearby. We soon learn he has no idea where her house is, but he is able to stumble upon some monsters. He is shocked to see the monsters, although he was looking for them. It's a level 31 monster who, according to the guideline, usually lives in dungeons and is unaffected by sword attacks. Ryu is confused why they are out of the dungeon, but more importantly, they can talk. Having no other option, Ryu uses his sword and, unsurprisingly, his attacks work. The monsters start spouting nonsense, but soon come to their senses and run from Ryu. It took him quite some time to find monsters, so he isn't letting them go. Following them like a creep, he is able to find their hideout, which turns out to be a portal to the Eifen Plain dungeon. Ryu guesses that this might be the reason why the monsters were not following their usual path and attacking the civilians. So he decides to do what he does best, interrogate monsters. He asks the ugly fellow if they made this portal, but the monster tells him they have no magic. Having his doubts, Ryu threatens to destroy the portal, causing the monster to panic and reveal that no one can go in according to that person's order. Although Ryu isn't aware whose order it is, he decides to go in anyway. He also tricks the monster into guarding the portal, making him think it will only benefit him. Inside the dungeon, some hunters are struggling to fend off the monsters. This is because the Tatira monsters are immune to physical attacks, unlike what we saw with Ryu. The party's healer, Alicia, ends up getting her leg pierced by one of the monsters. In a panic, she casts a blinding spell which also ends up hitting her ally. The boy is unable to see from one eye, but is still more concerned about his comrades. As their party slowly gets killed, the boy prays for help, but his death seems imminent as one of the Tatiro is right behind him. Blood gushes from behind him, but it is from the monster that just got beheaded by someone. Looking at the body, the boy is able to figure out how someone made Tatiro lower its arm and slashed its head with a second strike. Seeing Mr. Loud, it all starts making sense as he is a dual-wielding magic swordsman. The boy knows Laud and finds him amazing, unaware of the fact that Laud has been struggling to survive in the dungeon since he got here 70 days ago. We see that he ended up in the dungeon after he got drunk one day. The only reason he hasn't left is because he doesn't know how to. Meanwhile, the story going around is that Laud is looking for a healing artifact for his untreatable injury. Seeing Etis injured, he uses his high potion on her despite their rarity. Etis suspects that he is doing this because she is a girl, but Laud tells her it's only because it's useless for his injury, while in reality, he just doesn't want any difficulties as they leave because of her injury. Etis promises to one day repay her debt, but for now, Laud tells them they should head back using her injury as an excuse. As they head back, Laud starts feeling pain, which is caused by an upset stomach and not an incurable injury. Not knowing this, the party finds his actions even more admirable. Suddenly, the ground shakes, but Etis knows there are no earthquakes in the dungeon, meaning it could be a monster. Laud tells them to leave using the side path as he doesn't want to look uncool in front of a girl. She is reluctant, but he tells her to leave as it's coming. The boy takes Etis and leaves, not wanting to be a burden on Laud, but he didn't want him to leave as well. Now that it's come to this, Laud decides to fight. He immediately runs, seeing a large horde of Tatiro, but oddly enough, they also seem to be running away from something. On the other side of the dungeon, we learn the reason for their fear, which is none other than Ryu. He is trying to gain experience while also trying not to destroy the dungeon with his sword. The Tatiro reports him to their boss, who despite his instincts to run, decides to fight. The experience-hungry Ryu enters, breaking through the wall and killing the boss without even realizing it. His eyes go straight towards the fireball bracelet artifact, which he cluelessly wonders why it isn't guarded. After going through the numerous thoughts in his mind, he decides to take the artifact because it can throw fireballs. Instantly getting into the Kamehameha position, Ryu starts to slowly say fireball, finally unleashing it like a true weeb. We learn that monsters don't breed but are manufactured by the dungeon in special zones. These areas are sources of magic, which, for some reason, take the form of items or artifacts. Considering Ryu's luck, it's unsurprising that the artifact didn't work, the reason once again being his low level. He takes it off, thinking the artifact is trash for him since he can't use it. However, he considers selling it as one man's trash is another man's treasure, but it might be a little suspicious if a level 5 showed up with this artifact. As he deals with this dilemma, the floor under his feet moves, and a passageway opens up. Seeing it, Ryu smiles as he believes it leads to the boss room. Following it, Ryu comes upon a huge door. As he enters, he is met with an empty hallway with a single item in the middle of the room. The item is the magic source, which Ryu announces he will take if no one shows up to stop him. Not wanting to become homeless, the dungeon boss finally appears and grabs Ryu with its tentacle. Seeing it's level 45, Ryu finally has hope for gaining experience, but suddenly Laud shows up out of nowhere. Laud, being the genius that he is, assumes that the monster is using his trauma and has conjured a fake Ryu, as a level 5 can't possibly get here. Ryu goes along with it as he doesn't want to get exposed. Laud charges at him while the monster goes for his blind spot. Ryu sees this and saves him while simultaneously jumping to evade his attack, which was coming from below. If I didn't know any better, I would say Laud had some sort of grudge against him. In the process of all this, Ryu ends up damaging the boss. As he is disappointed by the monster, Laud charges at him in anger. While Ryu dodges him, the tentacle monster is also able to grab him, but that isn't an issue because the monster is too weak for Ryu. Unable to control his pent-up anger, Laud relentlessly attacks Ryu, while the tentacle blob gets thrown around the room as it still hasn't let go of Ryu's arm. In his anger, Laud blames Ryu for ruining his chance with Etis, which is not true as we all know. His anger leads him to become a pawn of the tentacle blob, who feels disrespected by Ryu and plans to use his supposed friend as a shield. The blob prepares to end Ryu by his companion's hand, which was a baseless assumption on his part. Seeing that Ryu only cares about gaining experience, the tentacle blob decides to make Laud a mid-level boss. He gives Laud a huge arm and orders him to attack Ryu. The fight ends before it even began properly, as Ryu takes care of them both in a matter of seconds. He is disappointed by the level 45 boss, who realizes he was defeated with just the wind pressure of Ryu's swing. While Ryu is wondering about his level, the tentacle blob seems to be plotting something. He leaves his main body in the shape of a one-eyed bat-like creature, as he needs to tell someone about Ryu before he takes the source. Although Ryu spots him, he isn't really interested and decides to head back. Suddenly, he sees something regarding 54.5 billion points. The next morning, we see the Berkman party is up. While Berkman flexes his muscles, Erwin is worried about Ryu as she can't find him anywhere. As the others also don't know where he is, she is horrified by the thought that he might have gone to the forest. Just then, Ryu shows up with a monster in his hands. Erwin questions him why he went without telling them and asks what happened. Ryu answers, nothing happened. But in reality, we learn he earned 113,000 XP from killing that tentacle monster. He calculates that the Hell Dogs only gave him 258 XP, and it took 1,100 XP to get to level 5, so it should take 2,200 XP to get to level 6. He happily checks the guideline and almost loses his soul seeing 54 billion XP is required for level 6. The trauma lasts with him for a while. After a week of searching, the party couldn't find any monsters outside the forest, so everyone returned back to the city. At the gate, their carriage is stopped and asked for a pass. The old man gets grumpy hearing this, while the others also wonder what the pass thing is about. Berkman decides to inquire himself, and they seem to be in luck as the man at the gate is his nephew Gulliman. He tells them that the Hunter Guild called everyone back as the Eifin dungeon has been cleared. The mood becomes very grim, but Ryu doesn't understand why, as it should be a good thing. He asks Hubert who could have cleared it as he didn't take the magic source. Hubert answers only otherworlders hide it when they clear a dungeon, as it is a great honor for a hunter. He further explains that the real problem begins when heresy inquisitors come. Their job is to kill otherworlders, but they torture anyone they deem suspicious, especially people level 20 and above. Ryu is instantly worried about Amber and Mr. Berkman, but there is nothing he can do. However, Mr. Berkman stays positive, because he believes their hard work is worth something. He decides to trade the stones at the guild, and tells Ryu he should go with Amber to the Baltan's shop to sell the materials. Everyone smiles as they tell him they will celebrate when he returns. Ryu happily runs off saying he can go alone. Amber tries to stop him as he may not know the price, but the old man believes he will know the material's value on his own. At the shop, his curse is back as Baltan doesn't want to buy anything due to the recent events. Ryu tries to sell for half the price, but Baltan is adamant on his decision. Suddenly, someone else in a hood shows up. Seeing him, Baltan almost goes to the next life as the person is from the Brotherhood, a heresy inquisitor. Learning his identity, Ryu tries to look at his level but is unable to. The Inquisitor out of nowhere asks him if he was unable to see his level, shocking Ryu. The Inquisitor instructs everyone to continue their discussion since he is late, and will stand in line. Baltan starts to shout upon seeing him, identifying him as an Inquisitor from the Church of Darkness. Inquisitor expresses gratitude for being introduced here. Eric watches him curiously, wondering if he truly comes from a church, and is puzzled by his level, which cannot be determined. The Inquisitor comments that Eric seems to have some valuable material for sale and positions himself right in front of him, causing Eric considerable surprise. The Inquisitor observes that Eric's facial expressions suggest he cannot gauge his level. The level is listed as unmeasurable, indicating it cannot be measured. Eric responds that he cannot discern the Inquisitor's level just by looking, unlike beings from other worlds who can see a person's level due to their system. Eric thinks the Inquisitor must be exceptionally strong given his ability to appear instantaneously in front of him. The Inquisitor stands before Eric, observing his impressive height and questioning why he appears so nervous. Eric acknowledges his nerves, explaining that stepping back would only provoke the Inquisitor to pursue him. When asked about his religious beliefs, Eric admits he isn't religious and doesn't believe in any god. Finally, when the Inquisitor inquires about his favorite fairy tale, he reveals that, as an orphan, he has never heard one. The Inquisitor continues, pointing out that Eric came from a small village and is an orphan with no known parents, and he is a suspicious figure from another world. Eric clarifies that he hasn't been a hunter for long, asserting that he is merely a human. The Inquisitor speculates that Eric's level should be quite low, around 21 or 22. He quickly retrieves a badge and places it on Eric's hand to check his level. The badge reveals Eric's level as 5. The Inquisitor lifts his helmet and looks up. He is astonished, as a level 5 is extremely low. Eric remarks that he can sell his goods now. He then takes out his goods and hands them over to Mr. Bolton. Mr. Bolton, inspecting the goods, comments on Eric's composure in the presence of an Inquisitor. He acknowledges that the items are quite good but indicates that he will need to negotiate, even though no one might come to buy them. He decides not to give Eric anything. As Mr. Bolton examines the bag, his attention is drawn to an artifact, a fireball artifact. Eric's focus remains on the Inquisitor, relieved that his low level spared him from being caught. He suspects the Inquisitor's strength, noting he couldn't gauge his level due to the mask. Mr. Bolton picks up an artifact and inspects it, recognizing that it should not be with someone at low level. As Eric reaches out to retrieve the artifact, it slips from Mr. Bolton's hand and falls, rolling to the Inquisitor's feet. He halts and examines the artifact, concluding that it appears special and powerful, and should not be in the possession of someone at level 5. Seeing this, Mr. Bolton hastily departs. Eric wonders what excuse he should make now, having expected a simple check and departure. He considers whether to claim ignorance and say the artifact was found on the way. The Inquisitor advances and informs Eric that a level 5 hunter should never enter a dungeon, and the artifact is very valuable. He advises Eric to keep it safe to prevent theft. He is surprised by how readily the Inquisitor believed he was not the artifact's source, and continues to listen as the Inquisitor begins telling a story. He describes a married couple from 15 years ago. The husband was a powerful hunter, and his wife and son lived at home. Although he was not the leader of his party, many people surrounded him due to his strength. One day, they embarked on a quest to kill a monster. Upon encountering the beast, the husband became terrified and prevented anyone from approaching, despite the monster not attacking. His party members were puzzled by his fear and attempted to persuade him to face the monster. When pressured, he revealed that the monster's level exceeded 800, making it far beyond their capability to confront. His friends don't believe him, so he reveals that he's from another world equipped with a guidance system that can identify anyone's level. Just then, the monster, previously dormant, begins to attack, its level dangerously high. Panicked, his friends flee, leaving him alone to face the threat. After they run away, the story shifts back to the Inquisitor. He asks Eric a question about who will die in the story. The person from another world fighting the monster or someone else. Eric answers that it's obvious the person from another world will die because he has revealed his identity. The Inquisitor replies that's not the case. The one who will die is the party leader, not the person from another world. The leader goes to inform the Church Inquisitors about the person from another world in his party. Upon hearing this, the Church Inquisitors arrest and investigate all the members of this party, killing them during the process. Later, the person from another world emerges alive from the dungeon, having survived the monster's attack. But when he returns home, everything is destroyed. The village learned about his identity, and his family was burned by the villagers, so he killed them and fled. The Inquisitor concludes by saying that anyone who associates with someone from another world will always end up dead. He doubts whether Eric can commit such a crime. Eric then questions about why he is telling this story and what it means. The Inquisitor explains that the person who gave Eric the artifact to sell is from another world and is likely his party leader. The story was meant to convey this message. Since Eric is just a level 5 rookie hunter, the Inquisitor plans to use all his strength to try to protect him. However, he can't guarantee the safety of Eric's party and asks about his party's name. Eric, upon hearing this, rushes to punch the Inquisitor, but just as Eric throws the punch, the Inquisitor quickly steps back. At this moment, Artis arrives. He immediately asks the Inquisitor to forgive Eric, saying there's been a misunderstanding. Artis explains that he came personally to clarify the situation. Eric, surprised and anxious, tells Artis that this situation is extremely dangerous. Artis shoots a glare and scolds Eric, pointing out that he's made a mess and is late. Artis admits he made a mistake by handing over the valuable artifact to Eric. Eric, feeling like a child, sits down in a panic. The Inquisitor asks Artis who he is, and he introduces himself, saying he's Artis Bannister, the 37th head of the Bannister family. The Inquisitor checks Artis's badge and remarks that he heard the Bannister family was extinct, but here he is, standing with the badge. Artis explains that although it's tough, he is trying his best to restore his family's pride. The Inquisitor says he can't take off his mask due to official business, but asks Artis what his connection is to Eric. He replies that Eric is his servant, recently hired. Despite Eric's good physical appearance, Artis adds that he's quite clueless and slow-witted. Eric is shocked to hear himself described as just a servant and feels uneasy about it. Artis steps in, explaining that he asked Eric to bring the artifact for magic research. The Inquisitor then questions Artis about his own interest in magical artifacts. Though Eric doesn't fully grasp their conversation, he feels compelled to involve himself. Approaching Artis, he begs for forgiveness, only to be swiftly criticized for his poor acting. Artis then says he needs to do his own research and is leaving. They bid farewell. As they walk away, Eric thanks Artis for his help and apologizes for his behavior. Artis warns Eric not to try acting again in front of anyone because it was really bad. As they continue walking, Eric places the artifact in his bag and apologizes for doubting Artis when he saw him in the forest. Artis asks what part of him seems suspicious. Just then, the Inquisitor questions the artifact's powers. Eric claims it's fireballs, while Artis responds that it's electric. Their conflicting descriptions leave them puzzled. The Inquisitor, now suspicious, apologizes and informs them they both must come with him to jail. On his first day with the Buckman party, Eric finds himself navigating the forest alone, growing increasingly frustrated as he tries to level up. He faces a tree ogre, a giant rooster, and a mud slime. The monsters he encounters fall with a single strike, but none of them give him the much-needed experience points. He calls demons dogs who gave him more points were better than the lowly monsters. He keeps on relentlessly killing the monsters to raise his level. Back at the camp, Buckman calls out to Eric, who's lost in his thoughts, and offers him a plate of food as a welcoming gesture. Buckman presents the meal with a touch of humor, but Amber erupts in mock anger at the suggestion that her cooking might be supper. She warns Eric that being accepted into the party means proving his worth and accepting what he gets. One of his party members mocks him, stating that he won't last long in this party. Although Eric suspects there might be some mischief in the food, he figures it can't be worse than the hell dog meat he's been eating. Grateful to not be alone anymore, he sits down to eat. Despite the spicy flavor, he finds the meal surprisingly delicious, much to the party's amusement. He even asks for seconds, showing his willingness to embrace the fellowship. Then they finally reveal that they made it just to prank him, and he shouldn't have eaten it all. That day he felt like he had finally escaped that nightmare of a mountain. Back in the present, as the Inquisitor releases his powers, creating a massive wind vortex around them, Eric asks Artis what's happening, wondering if this is some kind of wind magic. The wind is intense, but Artis quickly dismisses the idea, saying he doesn't feel any mana in the air. He figures out that this must be a special ability, and realizes the Inquisitor isn't just any low-level magician. Eric, hearing this, realizes that fighting the Inquisitor won't be easy. If he goes all out, the Inquisitor might discover that he is from another world. The Inquisitor, now standing within a large wind barrier, warns them that even if he cuts off their arms and legs, they won't die, but they'll stay alive. He offers them a deal, if they cooperate and walk out of here with their own feet. Eric, realizing there's no escape and that Artis is now caught up in his mess, steps forward. Eric confronts the Inquisitor, asking if they're searching for the dungeon closer. He boldly offers to help them find that person, hoping they'll leave without causing any harm. The Inquisitor deactivates his powers and agrees, saying they'll lead as long as they find the hunter who closed the dungeon. Just as Eric is about to reveal that he's the one who did it, a loud voice interrupts from the side. Everyone turns to see a horse-drawn carriage approaching, with a man shouting from the top, claiming to be the hero who cleared the dungeon. Eric and the Inquisitor are both stunned as they watch the scene unfold. Mr. Loud, standing proudly on the carriage, claims to be the one responsible for closing the dungeon by taking the artifact. With Jack and Alicia by his side, he looks every bit the hero. Jack sarcastically remarks that they thought he might have died in the dungeon given the tortoises inside and never expected to see him alive. The man eagerly recounts that he passed out inside the dungeon, and when he woke up, the boss was already dead. Assuming he had defeated it before losing consciousness, he took the artifact, causing the dungeon to vanish. Starving and stranded on a barren plain afterward, Jack and Alicia found him and brought him into their carriage as they were leaving Nefar City. Initially, Mr. Loud is thrilled, imagining himself as a legendary hero. However, his excitement quickly fades when church inquisitors, searching for the one responsible for closing the dungeon, capture him. Despite his protests, the inquisitors document everything and conclude that he, Lode Estelpia, a 21-year-old with an artifact from the Ain Plain dungeon, is the culprit. Eric, watching from a distance, is surprised, having thought Mr. Loud was fully transformed into a monster. Artis is equally shocked. After completing their investigation, the church inquisitor, who nearly captured Eric and Artis, apologizes for his mistake. Artis asks about Mr. Loud's fate, and the inquisitor explains that they need to investigate him further. Eric, however, is skeptical about Mr. Loud being freed anytime soon. The inquisitor calls Eric over, who hesitates. The inquisitor hands him a document, explaining that with the signatures on it, Eric can sell his goods anywhere. They expect it to be Eric but are surprised to see Artis instead, who is struggling with a heavy bag. Mr. Buckman asks Artis why he is here, and why he is carrying Eric's bag. Artis, panting and in distress, requests their help. He collapses right there, with the heavy bag falling on top of him. Mr. Buckman rushes over, lifts the bag off Artis, and helps him sit up. Artis comments that Eric must be incredibly strong to carry such a heavy bag. Mr. Buckman is both surprised and concerned, and asks Artis why he has the bag and where Eric is. Sir notes that there is no material in the bag. Mr. Buckman questions the whereabouts of the bag's contents and Eric's location. Artis explains that Eric instructed him to bring the bag, which is why he has it. Amber continues to inspect the bag and tells Mr. Buckman that there is a lot of money inside. Hubert adds that there are several bags, each containing 1,000 X, totaling 10,000 X. Everyone is astonished by the amount of money. They are amazed, wondering how he managed to sell so much to gather such a large sum. Amber also finds that the money doesn't match the value of the items they had. Artis then takes out the dragon badge, which Eric had given him to deliver to Mr. Buckman. Seeing the badge, Mr. Buckman questions if Eric has quit hunting, and why he made such a sudden decision. Artis replies that Eric didn't explain anything. The scene shifts to Eric, who is visibly terrified, walking down an alley. The background reveals that the Inquisitor had shown him a badge. After signing, the Inquisitor pointed to a badge labeled Great Earth, a group formed by people from Earth. Eric is shocked to see the badge, reflecting on how he was told that 4 great heroes had already destroyed the Great Earth group. He wonders why the badge is here and denies knowing anything about it. The Inquisitor puts the badge back in his box and says it's understandable that as a level 5 hunter, Eric wouldn't know about such things. The Inquisitor was merely asking if he had seen the badge before. He adds that even though Eric is a level 5 hunter and not from another world, if he recognized the badge, he should remember the ancient story. This is the final concern for Eric, who is deeply afraid for his entire party. As he walks through the area, he's so enraged that he punches a cart, breaking it. His frustration is palpable. He did not mean to cause trouble. Eric notices 3 people standing to the side, each holding a cigarette. They look like troublemakers, and it turns out the card belongs to them. Back at the guild, the remaining members are shocked by Eric's sudden departure from their group. Kubite insists that Eric can't just leave the party like this, demanding an explanation for his abrupt decision. Saber argues that Eric's return of his badge clearly indicates his decision to leave his hunter career behind. Kubite insists on talking to Eric to reconsider his decision. Mr. Buckman advises patience, acknowledging the inherent danger in their line of work. As Artis prepares to leave, Buckman asks him to convey their readiness to welcome Eric back if he returns. Artis agrees and exits. Meanwhile, the 3 troublemakers remain confused and frustrated about Eric's sudden decision. Artis reflects on the conversation, feeling that he didn't speak to Eric properly. He is envious of Eric's situation, wishing for a supportive family like his. Meanwhile, Eric's tied to a chair, with people pouring water over him to bring him back to consciousness. The person pouring water on Eric's head informs his boss that he has regained consciousness. The boss tells him to step aside as he assesses the situation. Eric is disoriented, wondering where he is and who has captured him. A large, imposing man stands before Eric and questions him, noting that Eric is a hunter because of the sword he carries. He accuses Eric of injuring his men, specifically mentioning that Eric broke their arms and legs. The three men from earlier confirm that Eric severely beat them and destroyed their cart. The boss demands to know how Eric dared to attack his men and why he ended up sleeping in their territory after the assault. Eric explains that he is willing to apologize, but he didn't break their limbs. The injuries were a result of their attack on him. He had no place to stay, so he ended up sleeping there. The boss asks his three subordinates if Eric's story is accurate. The three men, still in pain, confirm Eric's account, admitting they attacked him first. They acknowledge his unusually tough body, speculating that he must have used magic to enhance his resilience. Furious, the boss demands to know what magic Eric used. Eric insists he doesn't use magic and dares the boss to punch him if he doubts it. He taunts the boss for being afraid to hit him, but the three men deny that they said anything derogatory about the boss. Furious by the lies, the boss decides to strike Eric with full force. However, in the next scene, the boss is shown with his fingers injured, crying out in pain. Eric remarks that the boss is weaker than a tattered monster. Eric surveys his surroundings, contemplating whether to kill everyone and escape, but he notices many people watching him, wondering if he is a magical swordsman or a magic user. The scene shifts as more people arrive, including the mayor. They comment that Eric seems to be a harmless puppy that wandered away from home. The mayor's companions urge him to stay back, warning that Eric is dangerous. Eric confronts the mayor, questioning why he's being called a dog and expressing his deep dislike for them. He offers to share his story if the mayor is interested. The old man, unimpressed, dismisses Eric's offer and mocks him, suggesting he must be from Rock Mountain. Despite his subordinates' concerns about Eric's unknown abilities, the leader orders them to let Eric go, warning that he could easily defeat them if he wanted to. Surprised by the boss's knowledge of Rock Mountain, Eric asks how he knows about it. The leader responds with an offer, a contract in exchange for more information. 6 months later, following the destruction of the dungeon, many people abandoned Nafar City. The city's east side, once vibrant, now reflects a poorer, more desolate local area. Here, a group of tough-looking men, including a huge guy, are emptying a rundown house of its belongings. The house's owner's wife and child protest, but the boss insists they were informed about the eviction and the removal of items. The hunter, furious, arrives and demands to know why his belongings are being taken. Drawing his sword, he warns them to stop, vowing to protect his home and family. The boss, unfazed, threatens him to step aside and orders the hammer. Eric arrives with a hammer, but the hunter realizes it's merely a heavy iron rod with a rock attached. The hunter, despite his efforts, cannot pierce Eric's tough body with his sword. Eric remains unfazed and tells the hunter to move out of the way. The hunter gets terrified after seeing Eric isn't even scratched and steps aside as Eric destroys the entire house with a single blow from the hammer. The hunter, watching the destruction, realizes Eric is no ordinary human but a monster. Meanwhile, the boss's team guides the displaced family to a newly built, sturdy home, explaining that their association is working to improve the city. They assure the family that the house is as strong as a noble's, with reinforced walls and special paint to prevent monsters or enemies from breaching it. If the dungeon breaks and monsters flood the city, these walls can serve as bunkers for soldiers. The large, burly man explains all this to the hunter, offering free housing and maintenance as part of the association's benefits. The hunter, somewhat inebriated, thanks the man and expresses gratitude, although he had forgotten the details of their earlier conversation due to his condition at the time. The hunter acknowledges the situation, mentioning the decline in monster activity and the reduced workload for hunters. He especially wants to thank Eric, who wielded a hammer, and apologizes for drawing his sword in front of him, hoping he will be forgiven. Ignoring the hunter's words, Eric, visibly uninterested, wishes to leave. The hunter insists on showing gratitude and offers to share a meal with him, but Eric declines, saying he is too busy. The boss is puzzled by Eric's indifference and his refusal to join the others. The child's noisy play and a series of apologies from the boss further unsettle Eric, making him feel overwhelmed. The child playfully mimics the situation, adding to the chaos. Eric, feeling increasingly out of place, struggles to maintain composure. When the child's mother pleads for him to leave her son alone, Eric, searching for his sword in frustration, realizes it's missing. He hasn't been a hunter for 6 months, and without his weapon, he feels powerless. Eric leaves the room while the boss and another hunter discuss his unusual behavior, attributing it to his general demeanor rather than any specific incident. The hunter explains that Eric, who joined the association 6 months ago, is highly skilled and efficient, earning significant praise for his work. Despite his peculiarities and reluctance to engage with others, his contributions have been invaluable. Eric then enters the mayor's room without permission, which infuriates him. Ignoring him, Eric asks him about the infrastructure of the building that he has never seen before. To which the mayor agrees, noting there are no other buildings like that. That's why he hired Eric, and he did his job quite well. Hearing this, Eric punches the wall, telling the mayor to quit joking. Eric, frustrated, demands answers about the mayor's knowledge of the Rock Mountain and his motives. He lands another punch, asking the mayor about what he wants from him. The mayor, frustrated by the chaos caused by Eric, explains that 40 years ago, everyone lived normally, both humans and otherworlders like Eric. He smirks, wondering that he already knew, to which the old man points out his restlessness, due to being another worlder. He explains that it is because Eric still considers himself another worlder. He elaborates that people from different worlds began arriving, and while many became hunters, others integrated into various professions, contributing to fields like architecture. The mayor reassures Eric that if he wants to blend in as a normal human, he must leave the hunter's job behind and continue with his current tasks, focusing on being a regular part of society. Eric, bewildered, questions the relevance of a hunter job request he finds in the mayor's papers, noting that he has already resigned from that role. As they discuss, the mayor tells him that someone told him about Eric. Then he signals someone to come in. As the person enters, Eric is stunned.